with Will on 531 PI.
It is 8:33. You're listening to Pacific Mornings on 531 PI with William Terite. It's great to be in your company. Wednesday, the 26th of November. All right, let's turn our attention now to a staggering problem. Kiwis have lost a staggering $265 million to fraud in just the past year, with scammers getting smarter, faster and far more innovative in the ways they target vulnerable people. A new reported fraud monitor from Payments New Zealand lays out exactly how these scams happen and which tricks are catching New Zealanders out the most. Joining us now is MBIE spokesperson Ian Caplin, who says this figure really just shows how much damage scams are doing to everyday Kiwis. He joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, William.
Look, let's go there. $265 million lost in just 12 months. When you look at that figure, what does it tell you about the scale of fraud in New Zealand?
It tells you, William, that it's 265 mil too many for any sensible person. It tells you that integrity is everyone's business, and it tells us that scammers are getting increasingly effective in how they target victims to obtain personal information. But thanks for inviting me, because one of the messages I've got is a little bit of hope and a little bit of information that can help us push back against this commercial cancer.
Indeed. And look, let's talk about what types of scams we're getting hit with. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, the way in which payments are made to these scams. There's what we call the authorised payments, which is where a victim is deceived into processing the transaction themselves. So you and I pay because we think we're paying something honest, but we're deceived. Something turns out not to be the case. Now, in that situation, you're very normally covered by the financial institution. That's about 126 out of a 265 million, according to the statistics that we've got. The 139 that's left are unauthorised payments, where the account holder basically didn't know the transaction occurred. The money's effectively stolen.
Right.
The good news, if I can just finish on that, is that we understand that those are the losses, but 2/3 of that have been recovered, but it's still a third too many, and all those numbers are still too big for anyone.
Indeed. And which groups are most vulnerable here? Is it older New Zealanders, young people online? I mean, I also think of our elder Pacific community as well. Do you have an idea of that?
I think, William, this is one that transcends all kinds of different divisions and communities. This is one that it affects everyone. You can't be too young, too old, too posh, too not posh, if I can put it that crudely. It hits us all. I got caught a couple of years ago in the back of the bus with my son while I was arranging his football arrangements, and I thought it was the bank. It wasn't. I got hit. We're all very busy in our lives, and these scams, they're very clever people, and they're busy as well. It's what they do 24/7. And so everybody needs to be just a little bit aware. If I were to say 3 words, and I can take you through this more if you're happy. Stop, check and report.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I do want to elaborate. So it's stop all contact. If somebody's trying to sell you something, that could be a product, it could be a service, it could regrettably even be romance, and there's all sorts of deceptions we know about there. Stop all contact. Don't hand over your money or personal information to anyone unless you're sure they're legitimate. And this is where we're all a bit polite. We can be impolite. We can check. We can check to see the message or the email's kosher. We can phone the bank. We can go to the source. Nothing's that much of a rush. So it's check and then report it, whether you've been caught or not. Of course, if you have been caught, the horse may have bolted because these things happen quickly. But if you haven't been caught and you manage to push back, still report it, because it shows that this is what the fashion of the scam is. And there are places I can give you where people can go. There's no wrong door.
Okay, that's good to know. Valuable indeed. With that being said, though, I mean, how often do people realise they've been scammed too late? Do we have an idea of that?
I think very often, because as I said, it's kind of they obviously don't come with labels. People are sensible, people are shrewd, but they're also busy living their lives, doing lots of things at once, multitasking, and so something looks innocent, something Trojan horses in, if I can put it that way. It's a many-headed problem, and the ways in which people devise these very clever methods of getting to people, getting to them when they're busy, getting to them when they're vulnerable, and getting to them when they're in any position and people just want to move on to the next thing. It's perfectly understandable but I would say it's slowing down, checking it, being a little bit, we're all polite, being a little bit impolite. There's nothing wrong with that to check if somebody wants something off you. If I were to add some of the places where you could go, obviously, if it's the bank itself is to check with, and if there's a problem, to get in touch with the individual banks, the police, the banking ombudsman, NetSafe, CertNZ. There's a whole range of places, and each agency or entity deals differently. There is no wrong door here. We all want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, another problem for our Pacific community especially is language barriers. I mean, what do you think is something that we could do to navigate that problem as well?
Yeah. Well, I think the messaging still needs to develop and mature. It's obviously something which is a moving piece in action. So making messaging perfectly accessible and that language isn't a bar to that is something that is very, very important, but also something that, if I may say so, transcends potentially even that, is the basic messaging of stopping, checking, reporting. Scammers abuse our politeness.
Yeah, absolutely. Inevitably, I know family members who have been scammed by quite large sums of money. Some Kiwis,
sorry to hear that.
no, it's a symptom of the times we're in. Some Kiwis feel embarrassed about coming forward. One of my family members included. I mean, how big a barrier do you think that is?
It is a barrier to people. I completely understand that. It's a barrier of shame and feeling that this is a personal violation. And I would respectfully invite people to say they have done nothing wrong. They have done nothing wrong. Somebody has done it. If it was something in your front garden or in your house and somebody had broken into your house and robbed you, I question respectfully whether the same shame would be felt in reporting it. Because these methods are digital, because these methods are more insidious, there is no distinction. I respectfully suggest, and I understand how people feel that their shame and integrity have been compromised, but the integrity is everybody's business. Everyone plays a part in fraud prevention. We can return a compliment to these people.
Certainly. What role, not to come down too harshly here, but I suppose what role do banks and financial institutions need to play? Do they also need to step up their game here? Are they doing enough to keep customers safe?
So it's in the interest of banks and financial institutions and everyone who's in the system to maintain the integrity of the system. People generally trust the banks and the government. We all have roles to play. Over the years, as I've looked at this subject, when I first appeared as a spokesperson for MB, there were reforms already going in. So there's something now called confirmation of payee. So if you want to pay someone online, I want to pay the plumber, I type in their details, and even if it's slightly inaccurate, it'll tell me. There'll be prior restraints. But ultimately, it's also important that people have individual agency over their lives. They pay who they want to pay. They transact quickly if they want to transact quickly. And so it's a balancing act that always has to be performed. And so in that sense, we are all collectively responsible. But of course, there is no blame that attaches to a victim, because a victim of a crime, they are.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, it's no surprise and it's no secret that we're living in increasingly digital times. More of us are on digital. With that being said, do you feel as though this is just the horse is completely bolted in many ways because these scams are getting more and more sophisticated?
They're getting sophisticated. AI has a part to play, as it does and will do in all our lives. But we're not passive actors here. At the end of the day, human agency is still the determining point. Stopping, checking, reporting, whether it's AI-driven or any other driven, is a way we can return a compliment, William.
Certainly. Look, any final comments before we wrap things up?
I think stop, check and report. If that's the one thing I can get to your good listeners, I'm delighted.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time. That is the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment spokesperson, Ian Caplin. Have a lovely day.
You too.
You're listening